Welcome to Making Democracy Work, brought to you by the League of Women Voters. This is a monthly series about topics of community interest. Today we're going to talk about Hawaiian fish ponds. And we have with us today one of the men who is restoring a fish pond in Kane'ohe, and my co-host, who is going to be eventually taking over this program, is Kaui Lucas. And I'm sorry,
Herb Lee.
I'm Herb Lee of the Pacific American Foundation. Yes. And Kaui Lucas, you want to give a little bit of what you are a member of the League of Women Voters.
Right, and but probably more relevantly for this show is I'm on the board of Waikalua Fishpond Heritage Center, which is also a community-based stewardship organization, and so we have looked to Pacific America Foundation as one of the kupuna, the guiding lights. He laughs, but really, you guys have been at it how long? Restoring?
Almost 25 years.
Okay, yeah. I rest my case.
All right, so let's talk about Hawaiian fish ponds. And I just think they are so neat because they are so natural, right? They're this part of the ocean is enclosed, the tide goes in and out, fish go in and out, they come for the food in the fish ponds, they go out, they come back in until they're too fat to go out again.
Right.
Right.
It's a wonderful invention of Hawaiian engineering and observation, I think.
Is it a Polynesian-wide thing?
Well, the local kuopa, which is one type of Hawaiian fish pond, has not been duplicated anywhere else in the world, so it is very uniquely Hawaiian.
I see.
In Polynesia, there are many fish traps that use the tides. As the tides go up and down, they trap fish. But the kuopa is very unique to the islands. And there are different types of fish ponds, some that are upstream, some that are on the coast, some that trap fish with the tides. So there are different types of them. But the local kuopa, which is what Waikalua is, which are the more common ponds in Hawaii, is very unique.
Yes, maybe we can show a map of where the kuopa that we're talking about right now. So could you put that on, please? All right. So maybe you can orient people.
So we
are in Kane'ohe, and this is Kane'ohe Bay.
So this is the southern part of Kane'ohe Bay, and we're located right between Kane'ohe Stream that comes into the bay on the bottom, and there's a kava stream on the top, and Waikalua Loko is in the middle. So it's about 11 acres, and then right next to that, if you see that sort of a big patch of green right above the arrow, in the 1928 photo, you can see that there were two other ponds above the arrow. One has been filled in, which is now called the Kokokahi YWCA, and then the other one is still a part of our fish pond. It's a separate fish pond that's also called Waikalua. So you have about 1928, 90 years ago, about approximately, and then the year 2000. And then you have the city decommissioned sewage treatment plant right adjacent to Waikalua Loko.
And to orient people by a better known landmark, that's Bayview Golf Course.
Right.
Right above it.
Right.
So, now this pond that's to the left of the larger pond, is that the one that you said is in the process of being restored?
No, we haven't touched that one yet. We also own that one. It's about 2.5 acres, and it's completely overgrown with mangrove. So we've decided, in this generation to focus on the primary Waikalua Loko one, and then hopefully the next generation will have the responsibility to, help clear the other one.
So this is unique to Hawaiian culture.
Yes.
And it does seem like, why haven't other people who live on a shoreline done the same thing? It seems like such a neat way to to raise fish, to have fish to catch.
Well, I think, going back in history, our the kupuna, so we know that about the first ponds were built around 800 years ago. And the transition from being a hunter-gatherer to going out into the open ocean and catching fish to actually being able to farm fish was a huge transition in the opportunities for the Native Hawaiians to be able to have that access to protein now instead of going out into the open ocean. So, according to research at the University of Hawaii, there were about 488 of these ponds that were built in the 8 major Hawaiian islands from 800 years ago until about the beginning of the 18th century.
Let's see another one of the pictures that shows the kind of like what happens.
Yes, right
There it is. All right.
So that is an example. That sluice gate in Hawaiian is called the makaha. And this is the gate. So this is sort of an example of what the makaha would have looked like. It would be a single gate, and it would allow the pua to come into the pond. They would smell. The ponds were brackish water, so there was always a fresh water source. They would smell the fresh water, and then they would come in through the gate, and then they would eat the algae, and then in a few months, they would grow big enough that they wouldn't be able to get back out. But it also served another purpose, and that was to keep out the predators. So ponds barracuda are the primary apex predator in the pond. They love fish ponds because it's a lot easier pickings than Kane'ohe Bay. So we have a lot of barracuda in our pond, but so they serve a dual purpose.
So the barracuda are actually in the pond?
Yes,
Oh, why aren't they eating the fish?
they are.
Oh.
Because they're the carnivores, they're the apex predator, and in the days of old, the primary fish that were grown in the ponds were herbivores. So the ama, which is the mullet, and the avo, which is the milkfish. But now in our pond, we got almost everything that's in the bay is in the pond.
Do you not try to get rid of the predators?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So we have these. We started a few years ago an annual pole fishing contest for families and children to come in, and pretty much 90% of what they catch are barracuda.
Oh.
Wow,
So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's fun, and they learn, about how, and they're part of the restoration process to get rid of the predators.
But why don't the gates keep them out?
Well, I think what happens is that, because we've never been able to get them out from the beginning.
They were there.
They were there already.
Before the
and
gates
they
were up.
Yeah, and
I
they keep
see.
propagating. And then occasionally when we have big storm events or big changes in tidal action and things like
Oh.
that, and the gates get broken,
Oh.
then all of a sudden it's a free-for-all, and
I
everything
see.
comes in and out. We've had, the baby hammerhead sharks, we've had the bat rays, we've had all kinds of stuff come inside. And
I
it's,
see.
it's difficult to get them out.
Okay. Now, can we get back to that, the gate picture again? Because it doesn't look quite right. You see now, I can see if we had only those sticks and the water was coming in and out along with the fish,
Yeah.
but there's rocks and stuff in front of it.
Well, this is a very, very low tide.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a very, very low tide. This is probably
I
one of the
see.
low. The lowest it gets is that you wouldn't see any water. So we're seeing, where the water is the Kane'ohe Bay side. So the pond is in the back, yeah. So normally the tides are, will fluctuate about, 1.5 to 2 feet. So it'll come all the way up to the top. And now with the king tides, of course, it goes way over the top. So this is a very low tide. So as the tides come in and out every day, then the fish will have an opportunity to come in and out.
Oh, and so the barracuda can come in with the king tides too.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah,
I
we
see.
hope not, but
Yeah.
So at this point, though, the actual function of the fish pond doesn't seem to be primarily raising protein for diets.
no. Well, there's a lot of reason for that. And I think Paipai'oheia and maybe some others have been successful in raising fish, but not on any kind of commercial level or at a level where it was the original purpose of the pond. And so there's a lot of reasons for that. Primarily, number one is environmental degradation. So water quality, sediment, invasive species coming in, all kinds of changes in the ecosystem that affect the life of the pond. So there are things that are living in the pond just like in the bay, but it's kind of marginal about making sure that if you did eat it, that it would be healthy. So we constantly monitor water quality, the sediment analysis, and things like that. And the ponds, as like anything else in nature, over time does self-heal itself and clean itself. But we have to constantly monitor what kind of inputs are coming in.
So that sounds like lots of science.
Yes.
Let's see some of the pictures of that show how the community comes together and how especially the students are able to participate
Yes.
at Waikalua.
Yeah. So our pond is about 400 years old, and I think in the history of Waikalua, we're at a phase where we're not necessarily propagating fish, but we are teaching and trying to recapture the wisdom from our ancestors about this wonderful feat of Hawaiian engineering and incorporating that as a bridge with contemporary science and technology and providing an opportunity for children like this to understand the relevance of what they're teaching, both from a historical perspective as well as a contemporary perspective, and have some fun. And so what they're doing here is they're doing a pai activity. So they go into the pond and we hold out the net. It's about 300 feet long. They make a human line and they chase the fish into the net, and then they're bringing this net up to see what they caught. So it's a catch and release, and they have to identify what they caught, and then they put it back.
I have not seen a pai fishing expedition since I was a kid, but I remember hearing that slap, slap, slap.
Yes. So everybody
out
gets a
at
stick.
Niu.
Yeah, everybody gets a stick, and they pai the water, and they chase the fish. And the fish are very smart. So if there's any openings between the people as we're walking to the nets, the fish will find it and they'll go right through. It is really fun. And we kind of reserve it as an opportunity for them to earn the right to actually do that. So they really need to know and understand the functionality and some of the history of the pond before they actually do that.
Now, when they're doing it, the net is vertical, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about
okay.
4 feet. It's about 3 to 4 feet high. Yeah.
I see.
So everybody's holding it up. Yeah.
So the Pacific America Foundation, who has been shepherding thousands of students
Yes.
through this process, you've been able to develop curriculum, and can you talk a little bit?
Sure, and in the late 1990s, a few years after we started the restoration process, we get a call from one of the local teachers from Castle High School, and she said, I heard what you guys are doing. I'm teaching science to these students, and I'm not reaching them. And can I bring them down to the pond, and maybe I can teach them science in a different way? And 9 months later, we saw this amazing transformation in the kids, and that changed our whole perspective on the restoration process. So we thought, can we reach more kids? And imagine if we could actually provide an opportunity for kids that were much younger, because these kids were high school kids, 11 and 12th graders. And if they had a whole 10 or 12 years of experience in really understanding the stewardship and caring for places. And in those days, nobody was talking about malama aina, nobody's talking about aloha aina, which are really
Place-based.
common,
Yeah.
place-based education, even culture-based education. What is that, So we were able to write some grants, and in 2000 we got our very first grant from the U.S. Department of Education under the Native Hawaiian Education Act. And I put together what I call today the dream team of the best curriculum writers, cultural practitioners, artists, researchers, master teachers, and we're able to develop this wonderful curriculum that has launched us on 2 decades now of building a whole base of curriculum that uses not just the pond, but the Ahupua'a and the islands of Hawaii as the context to be able to teach in all of the core areas. And then it's become a catalyst for students to come and schools to come to not just my site, not just pond sites, but going outside.
Yes.
I always say, and people have heard me say this a million times, Hawaii, we live in the greatest community classroom on the planet because of our weather. We can take our kids outside and learn and understand the relevance and give back. but we don't do that, and we hope that stories like this and opportunities like this to share stories will encourage and inspire people to, come and discover the resources of their own communities, to give back and inspire people to learn and understand the relevance of what they're learning.
So what schools are involved with this?
Well, over the years, we've had an opportunity to now train over 5,000 teachers,
Teachers. 5,000 teachers.
Which come from approximately 150 schools in the state. We do a lot. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've really focused back on our roots, so to speak, on the windward side of Oahu. But we've had an opportunity to teach on every single island. And recently, we have been able to adopt Lanai. The Cultural Heritage Center is in the process of restoring their first fish pond, Wild Pie. And so we've helped them to adapt our Aloha Aina curriculum to help them incorporate that into their learning at their school.
Is there something outside of the windward side?
In terms of fish ponds?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have a number of years ago, there was a hui that was formed. It's called the Hui Malama o Loko Ia. And there are about 40 fish ponds on the major Hawaiian islands that we get together annually, and we share information with each other about, what we've learned and practices and what works, what doesn't work. Everyone is different, and so, it's a great opportunity to learn from each other as well.
We are so lucky that there is this span of time that you guys have been really in the trenches in doing the science and taking this, because as things change, we have a bit of a baseline, and we had a just chance to chat a little while ago before the show, and you really shocked me with some of your news. Please tell us about the work that you're doing with the Smithsonian and how that relates to climate change and king tides and all of that.
Well, as we developed the curriculum, the kids started asking us about career opportunities. And so we launched some programs into career planning and development, and that led us obviously to partnerships with the University of Hawaii and Windward Community College and the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology, and then boom, the Smithsonian Institute. And so in partnership with them and the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology, they got some funding in 2014 to create what's called these Marine Global Earth Observatories, or marine geosites. And Kane'ohe Bay is one of them. They're only one of 7 or 8 on the planet. And the purpose of them is to, for the next 30 years, is to collect data from these places to inform global scientists about what's going on with global climate change, from the bottom of the ocean all the way up to the top into the atmosphere. And so we're part of that, and we're, I think, one of the few that is actually linked to a K-12 education system. So every time the scientists come to the islands, and they did a complete biodiversity analysis or assessment of Kane'ohe Bay in May of last year, and we had students accompany all of the scientists, and they're learning side by side. So we think that this is a great opportunity again for sort of real world work-based related kind of opportunities for students to see what is possible.
So students from Kane'ohe are able to be on these research missions
Yes.
with the scientists from the Smithsonian.
They're doing very active student science work and just working right along with them. And we've been training them in terms of how to collect data using very sophisticated equipment for water quality, sediment analysis, things like that. And they have represented us very well.
So what are some of the things that maybe you've been surprised to learn as a result of all this research?
Well, I'm really concerned that, I think in our lifetime, the local ia, the fish ponds, are on the verge of vanishing. So from the time that we've had all of these ponds, there are probably less than 10% of them that are left, because most of them, 90% of them are gone. But in what we've been able to sort of rediscover in the last 25 years, I think they hold the key to be able to recapture some of that knowledge combined with contemporary knowledge to help solve some of the problems that we have today. And more importantly, food sustainability. How do we grow more fish? fish consumption in the world is taking a huge nosedive. And as we all know, in the nearshore environment in Hawaii, they're basically all fished out. So I believe that, these ponds, the remaining ponds, hold the key to our ability to maybe restock the nearshore fisheries in some way, in the future, so that in the future generations it doesn't continue to decline.
Now you say that the fish pond could heal itself. Have you seen the quality improve within the fish pond?
Yes, we've seen the quality improve as we have removed the mangrove. When we first started, in 1995, the mangrove had completely, covered the circumference of the pond. And as we have taken it out, we're at the last 10% now that we should remove out of the year. The oxygen comes back, higher oxygen levels. The sediment doesn't accumulate around the roots of the mangrove. And I want to say that, in 99% of the world, the mangrove is a very good, hardy, important plant to the planet. But for inside of Hawaiian fish ponds, they're like a cancer. And if allowed to just grow, it'll just overtake and it'll destroy the pond. So as we have been removing the mangrove from the pond, we've seen, the vitality of the pond come back. And, the other thing, I think the other most important thing is, to me, is educating all of the people that live in the Ahupua'a and making sure that people don't pollute the streams and things like that, because they all flow down to that part of the bay and into our pond. So part of it, you can understand that the education is equally as important as invasive species that are coming in, or the king tides that come in and change the ecosystem. And so we have to look at all of these things and balance all of these things, to bring it back.
Maybe one day we'll have cars that don't run on gasoline and don't
Yeah, I
have
mean, the technology is there. We can run it on water, right?
I want to get back to the mangroves.
Yes.
Because at I believe it's a larger fish pond over by He'eia Pier.
Pai.
Right, yes,
Pai
And
O'Heia.
they had really very, very tall mangrove trees, and they have saved the trunks of the trees, and they grow nice and tall and
Yes.
straight, and so they're using them, well, you said to build hales?
Hale.
They're the best, yes.
Yeah. So if you speak to almost any hale builder, Hawaiian hale builder, they love mangrove. Mangrove is a very hardy wood. It's a very dense wood. It grows very straight, and it lasts really long. And they're perfect for building hales and creating a good structure for building hale wa'a, or for whatever uses you want. So we've had a number of people that have come to harvest from our pond that have built hales around town.
Now, hale wa'a, that's on a canoe?
Well, it's a A-frame
Yes.
hale that is built along the shoreline to basically house canoes. Yeah.
Oh, I
And we're
see.
trying to reintroduce canoe paddling and sailing in that part of Kane'ohe Bay. So we have a master canoe builder at our site that's been building canoes for keiki, and we want to build and dedicate a hale wa'a to just the practice of Polynesian voyaging and canoeing, and in tribute to what Polynesian Voyaging Society has done for all of us.
And then you told us that the branches of the mangrove are used for your makaha.
Right. So
Yes.
we when you have no money and you have to rebuild the gates every 6 months, wow, we use the mangrove because we're cutting down so much of it, and so the kids know how to apply it and fix the makaha, and it lasts lasts a long time. So you can see it right there, and so it lasts for about 3 years, and we use the parachute cord because that works the best. And again, we're trying both contemporary methods and traditional methods, and we use, even though they're invasive, we try to find some kind of use for them. And the mangrove works really great as a makaha sluice gate.
So, Waikalua is in the middle of a very well-used neighborhood,
Yes.
densely populated, and some people think, have some resistance to, well, you know, what does it mean? What is it meant to that neighborhood to have you guys
Well,
there
we've
over
had
those-
now 20 years of working with the schools, and I remember about maybe 7 or 8 years ago when the first children from Pu'ahala School came to the pond, came back as teachers bringing their students to the pond. And I almost fell on my knees and started to cry because they said, wow, Uncle, wow, you guys have really done a great job with this place. And I came here when I was in the 4th grade. And, you know, now these are my students. And I thought, wow, I'm getting old.
Yes, and
But what a
Pu'ahala-
remarkable thing. What a remarkable thing, you know, to
Yes.
have that legacy and for them to feel that connection to the place and to be educated and inspired to be able to bring the next generation. That was like, yes, that's why we're doing this, you know.
And Pu'ahala is within walking distance
Yes.
of your pond. Now we have less than a minute. Is there something urgent that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I just want to say that, you know, we were able to acquire the pond in 2014, but we don't believe that we own it as an entity. This is something that was really a result of community, 100,000 people that have come down to the pond since 1995. We are merely stewards passing in time, and we hope that the next generation of children that are inspired through the education or through the stewardship of the pond will be able to, you know, continue the legacy of the pond for the next 400 years.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you,
Herb Lee.
Pearl. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Kaui.
And Kaui, it's good to have you with me. Thank you very much. And I am Pearl Johnson with the League of Women Voters. Thank you for watching.